Hey everybody, I am your host Joe JDF Foster, and I welcome you back to another episode. Today's episode will be dealing with songs that discuss drug use or drug addiction. And let's start off with the fact there is way too much music that actually deals in this subject matter. When I was making this list originally, I could name 25 songs off the top of my head that were about drugs alone in some way. And then I went and looked it up, came up with 100 more by the time I was done, and knew I had to cut the list down. So I did exactly that. I cut it down to ones I found something interesting about. Just to let you know, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, for all you Beatles fans, you're wrong about. Lennon actually gave an interview about this, and Lennon's son later gave an interview about this. It turns out that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is actually about a little girl that John Lennon's son was friends with. He drew, apparently, according to Lennon, according to them, Julian came home from school one day with a picture of this little girl drawn and told his dad that the girl's name was Lucy. And they got to talking, and at some point, stars were thrown in on the picture, and then it was called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Lennon actually had no idea when he did the song that the song initialed to LSD in the title, which I find a little odd and think he's lying about in that case. But the song but the song itself is actually about the girl. And that girl actually was real. Like I said, was real, as besides Julian having drawn the picture of her, there's two different papers that made a mistake on. There's two different papers, one of which made a mistake on who she was, and the other one who actually got it right by actually asking Julian the girl's name. Anyways, back to my other point. These songs about drugs, there is a lot of these, and it's actually scary to know that how many artists end up with drugs and stuff, and it's become a part of the business, and it's a big deal, and it's sad, but not all of them have the negative point of view that they seem to take on at times. Some of them are actually trying to reinforce another ability or ways around something else. Or could even be cries of help if you actually listen to them. But, anyways, now to get started with my list. Again, these are songs about drug use or drug addictions. First on the list is one that for the longest time, and even to this day, still gets mistaken for being a song about heartache and love. And even by me, this mistake was made. It's actually a song about a drug addiction, and that song is Toy Soldiers by Martita. Yes, this was a one-hit wonder by this singer, but this song, most people will actually remember this song for the line "Like Toy Soldiers," which was sampled in Eminem's song later on of the same title, like toy soldiers. Okay, the singer of this is Martita, born Marta Marrera. I'm yes, I'm guessing on the name because I'm not exactly sure. And she was born in 1969 in California. She was a child actress and singer, and the reason why I know her, and a lot of your parents or grandparents might know her, is a show called Kids Incorporated, which she was on it from 84 to 86. And as although they did change her name on the show to Gloria instead of leaving it as Marta. But something about this show, it's produced, but that same show produced other singers such as Fergie, Jennifer Love Hewitt. It's had a number of people on it that went on to be stars and singers later on. But it was PBS. To me, it was PBS's answer to the Mickey Mouse Club. But to me, it was better in the way it was done because it actually did stuff with the kids that made it better. Rather than, oh, here, we're just going to have the kids show up, they'll perform a couple of songs, maybe do a video of some type, and that's it. But now back to the song. The song itself is about drug addiction and how it controls you like children in a game. Like children control toys. And it's often compared, it's not compared to, but it's often stated to have a similarity to Metallica's Master of Puppets in that way. Because because of it being about the drug addiction. And the control over you, rather than you having control. And the singer wrote this about a friend who was hooked on cocaine. And the note on this that I found interesting, and I didn't realize, that same singer I was talking about earlier, Fergie, known then as Stacey Ferguson, who was actually the longest running member on Kids Incorporated, if you actually look up the years that they ran on the show. In their years they ran on the show, and it's amazing. But anyways, she actually did background vocals on the track. Okay, now I'm going on to song number 2. This one was actually well known to be a drug song, but it's one I thought was actually a good one to compare still. Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The lead singer wrote it about his days as a heroin addict. The title is actually an allusion to where he bought the drugs at. And it was the biggest hit for the Chili Peppers, but it wasn't their typical sound. At this time, most of their songs were hard rock, and this song was a ballad. And it was particularly noticeable during the Blood Sugar Sex Magic tour about this. Something I didn't know, though, is that the singer wrote this originally as a poem and had no intention of actually releasing it as a song. The producer came across it one day and thought it would be a song, and they were disagreeing. And eventually, the singer gave in. But also, the music video is direct. The music video, the director for it, was also the same director of Good Will Hunting and Finding Forrester. Now, I do think he could have done better with the video because it wasn't all that great. It was way too simple, in my view. Especially with the opening where the lead singer is just standing there basically in what looks like he's standing in front of a backdrop. They could have done better with that. And Weird Al would actually take part of this song. He would actually sample a part of this song when he made fun of Red Hot Chili Peppers by doing a song called Bedrock Anthem, where he parodied the Flintstones and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he took he sampled the beginning of this one, and then drove it into being the song "Give It Away." Now on to song number 3, Goo Goo Dolls, Black Balloon. This one, I don't know how people didn't get that it was a drug song, because when I was a kid, I heard it as it started. I mean, the first time I heard it, drugs were the thing that came to mind with it because of the way it was done. And it just didn't seem right to be a regular song of any type. But apparently a good amount thought it was just a girl finding a spirit lifter of some type, which I find odd. But Johnny Resin, but the lead singer of the band, sorry, I think I have the wrong name in mind there, so I'm not going to say it. I forgot to write it down. That's the reason why. My mistake. But the lead singer wrote this about a friend who overdosed on black tar heroin, which I think is one version of where the title actually gets its name from. The black part, because heroin is known to be carried in balloons, and black tar was a very special one because, well, at least when I was a kid, the stats on it was that it was 10 times stronger than regular heroin, and it killed almost guaranteed on the first try. And if it didn't, you were addicted that moment because it was so strong. But speaking of the balloon, it's seen in 2 ways. Some say that it's what was wrapped around. It's what they used to wrap around before they injected themselves with the needle, which I could see. But I think it's along with the other people that it's actually what the heroin was carried in, as I stated. And the video in this is kind of an odd one because it shows this girl standing at a pool the whole time. And she's getting up this diving board, and it shows a lot of diving and a lot of things happening in it in that way. But spoiler alert to the video, when it actually shows her diving, the pool's empty. And I found that actually very well done. Like I said, it seems weird when you first watch it like that, but at the same time, to me, it actually made sense in that way. Because the addiction, it lifts you high. The idea of heroin is that it lifts you to heaven and then drops you to hell. The TV show Angel actually had a fake drug that was similarly They did a similar thing as its name. I think they named it Orpheum or Orpheus, something like that, because it caused a dream state. But the tagline for the drug was, it lifted you to heaven, dropped you to hell, and left you there. But the idea of heroin is that the high is so great that when you fall, it hurts so badly that you need more, because that high is to feel normal. It's not to get high again. It's actually to be back to normal, because the high, which to me is why you had the ladder in the video. As she went higher and higher and higher, the even spot got lower and lower and lower. So she had nowhere to go. Then eventually, she hit that point, and the only way to go was down. Unfortunately, down had no safety net. Okay, now on to song number 4. Purple Pills by D12. Some places will list this as D12 featuring Eminem or Eminem featuring D12. At the time this thing was released, though, Eminem was a part of the group, and it was edited for radio and TV play to be called Purple Hills. The music video shows the band running through literal hills of the colors they mention in the song. Some see it as a nod to the editing of the lyrics, and others just see it as somebody who was making a music video. But in the song, the group meets up with Proof, who's dressed as a clown and terrorizing kids at a party. For you rap fans, maybe you could explain this one to me, because I'm not big on rap and hip hop. It's not my area of expertise, and I couldn't really find much on this one. I do know Eminem came up on 10 years of sobriety recently, according not just to a YouTube video, but according to like a number of things I read. And I'm actually happy for him on that note. Although I may be wrong on the date and he already passed it, which if I did, I'm sorry. But 10 years sober is actually a very good thing to do. But at the time the song came out, he was on drugs. And he was still doing them after that. But which could explain why a number of his songs back then were actually very bad when they had drugs involved. And why they could get so rough, because he could actually understand in his mind where that darkness is, and maybe had thoughts about it that he expressed through his songs. And again, I said maybe, so it's personal opinion on that. So he wrote them down, he got them out of his head, and there was nothing that went through. Like a lot of writers do when they write a story or a poem, where it's how they deal with something. Okay, now for song number 5. Sorry, got caught up there. Third Eye Blind, Semi-Charmed Life. This one is actually about. This one I actually found interesting, because I'm actually the person who was in the majority who didn't realize it was about drugs. Just thought it was an interesting song. And the band's name, first of all, is actually said to be one of two things. Either a reference to male genitalia, or two, the spiritual awakening of the mystic third eye. But now back to the song. This song's actually about a user's descent into crystal meth addiction. And the band actually admitted to putting an intentional chipper melody to the dark content because they wanted to deal with it in a good way, dark situation in a good way, and maybe get people's attention in that way. But the idea was that the drug-induced high makes everything better. And the singer actually quoted partly. I couldn't find the full quote. I just found a lot of the part of the quote. It states that it's the perfect moment before gravity came back. And it's about doing crystal meth will lift you up until you break. I'm sorry. There's actually a lyric in the song that actually states, doing crystal meth and will lift you up until you break. Well, this was considered racy by a lot of radio stations. So, crystal meth was often distorted during radio play, so as not to seem to support drug use in any way. Which, that actually explains when I was listening to the song, why, when I'd listen to it on the radio, I'd hear like a type deal or something like that. Or it sounded like a record scratching. Whereas when I listened to it on a CD or some other form, I wouldn't hear anything. But I also didn't notice that it actually said the line. It didn't say the word. I also didn't notice it actually said the words crystal meth. And during a 2015 interview, one of the band members actually stated they didn't feel like the song was really theirs because they didn't participate in the experiences like others had, or with the problems they had dealing with the effects afterwards in getting over the addiction. And now for a really good one, in song number 6, White Lines by Grandmaster Flash. Obvious what it's about with the title White Lines. This one's about cocaine, but this was actually an anti-drug song where Grandmaster Flash was telling them not to do drugs, which back then was actually not that common. I went back and looked. I found a few songs that talked about don't do drugs in some way. There was one called White Lines, don't do it. And then there was White Lines by Grandmaster Flash. But another thing about this song is speaks out as a political song as to how the justice system was unfair and unjust. As there's actually lines in the song that discuss this. It spoke about poor black kids getting much harsher punishments than white businessmen, and it's the first rap song about being anti-drugs. And the track may, And the track is actually based on an obscure dance song called Cavern by Liquid Liquid, which actually has the lines in it of a street kid gets arrested, gonna do some time. Got 3 years just to commit more crime. Businessman is caught with 24 kilos out on bail and out of jail. That's the way it goes. What many may not know is that those lines are actually referring to the inventor of the car that's used for time travel in Back to the Future, John DeLorean. They were lyrics based on his case, where when his business got in trouble, he went into drug running, or something to do with drugs, and got caught with 24 kilos of cocaine. That actually, yeah, I remember John DeLorean got in trouble business-wise because his cars were so expensive to make. Because my mom was a big fan of the car, and I admit the car is nice. But the thing is, that car is so hard to make because it was like personally built for the person. It was like personally built, each car. Rather than just, oh, here, follow the Ford line. So it made it hard to do. So DeLorean got into money troubles, which again, what led to his little case there. So I actually didn't remember the DeLorean drug case, though. I remember he got in trouble. I just didn't know what it was for. Now for number 7. Brown Sugar by D'Angelo Brown. This one's actually somewhat of a good one. I listened to a little bit of it. I didn't get a lot of it. But it's actually a song about the love the singer has. And a lot of people misinterpret this as him singing about the love of a black woman rather than other women, when in fact it's actually about the love of marijuana. And the song came about completely by accident. D'Angelo was on his computer working while an engineer was working. D'Angelo was noodling around on his computer, basically just trying to figure out something to come up with. I mean, just messing around. And an engineer was working on a computer problem. Well, while this was happening, the engineer looked over and saw it and told him it would make a great song. Actually, the engineer told him it sounded like a good song. And then somebody else told him it sounded like a good song, so he wrote it first, and then somebody else listened to it. The track co-producer that helped with the song, it was 20 minutes, actually stated 20 minutes and a mistake is how they actually came up with this song. Okay, now for number 8 on the list. Again, this one I won't be too great with because of the genre it falls under, but Rihanna, You Found Love. And this one I was actually surprised by, because Rihanna singing about drugs wasn't one I'd expect, I will admit. But it turns out that the yellow diamonds Rihanna talks about in the song, while they do exist in nature, the ones she's talking about are actually drugs. Although, again, I couldn't confirm this 100%, so this one could have actually been either way. But 3 sides versus 1, but 3 places versus 1, one of them being Rolling Stone was why I'm able to believe, why I'm more inclined to believe that the song's about drugs. And it's the first single off her 6th album, and this one has an upbeat dance track, which is another thing I noticed. How come when the singer started singing about drugs, a number of them made it where the song was more upbeat? It's a little more interesting. Not a lot of them actually went southward with it. The video portrays her and the lover. Portrays her being addicted to both her lover and drugs, and they even abuse each other. Well, like I said, since I'm not a fan of Rihanna's music or of the genre she belongs to, I don't really know much about it, so I'm going off what I could find and what I saw. But it turns out this video was heavily criticized for how it portrayed her character in the video to viewers and fans. Eileen Kelly of the Rape Crisis Center told Britain's Daily Star, again, this was something I found, that Rihanna's new video is a disgrace. She is objectively possessed by men, which is disturbingly what we see in real violence cases. The director said, but the director countered this by saying it was about the dangers of addictions, not about Rihanna's past experiences. And the rumor is James Franco was asked to do the role but turned it down. And this actually won the 2012 VMA of the Video of the Year award. It's actually hard to believe Rihanna's been around that long. Okay. Number 9 on my list. Back to Metallica with their Master of Puppets. As I stated earlier, it's a reference to drugs and how the user is the puppet while the drug actually is the master in this sequence. Metallica's popular live... Okay, this is Metallica's most popular live song. Played in concerts more than any other. 2 shows in China in 2013 asked them not to play the song, possibly due to fear of unrest from control by a greater entity. Fear of unrest from control by a greater entity. The band complied, but throughout the sets, they would play riffs from the song. I can remember Metallica growing up when I was younger. Them playing about drugs, I could believe. And it actually, as well as, I'm surprised they probably didn't have... I'm actually surprised I only found one song by them that was listed as being a song about drugs. Now this next band, number 10 on my list, is another one that drugs being a part of it, we already knew. And if we didn't know it, we would have suspected. And that's Guns N' Roses, and the song is Mr. Brownstone. The song is about heroin and how it affected the band. Brownstone was likely the leader. It was likely the dealer's name, as there isn't a known slang term anywhere. There isn't anywhere known where Mr. Brownstone is slang for heroin. Although the other idea is that it could actually be the heroin itself, as heroin is brown in its natural color. And the last song lyrics in the song are shoved it in a. The last song lyrics in the bottle actually talk about the heroin use and how bad it was. Shove it in a bindle, which, as it turns out, a bindle is a dime bag of heroin. Shot it in the middle. Very obvious. I wish I'd never met her. Said I'd leave it all behind. Never met her being heroin, and that they could quit cold turkey and just move on with their life. This song was actually, when the band had issues later, 3 members of the band would go on to form what was known as Velvet Revolver. This is actually the most played song by Velvet Revolver from the Guns N' Roses days. Now I'm going to move on to song number 11. Another one that shocked me to learn this, that it was actually about drugs, because I actually believed, like the majority, it's about sadness and heartbreak and loss. Which I guess with drugs, it could be, but this one was slightly different in that way. Anyways, the song is Angel by Sarah Mclachlan. It's about the addict's struggle with the world. Every time they use the word angel, it's the drug they are given into repeatedly until their death. On VH1 Storytellers, she actually admits to this being about the Smashing Pumpkins keyboard player who overdosed on heroin in 1996. She didn't know him personally, and she doesn't have any drug experience. But when she read about his death, she felt a connection to it and started writing the song eventually. But when she started writing the song, it was very easy to write. It only took her a couple of hours. She also states, though, that her favorite use of this song in a TV or movie is 1998 Nicolas Cage Meg Ryan movie, City of Angels. The story of an angel who becomes human to fall in love with a woman. Which means he's got to fall from grace. Something which is interesting, because another way of looking at how heroin works, other than like black tar in the regular form, as I discussed earlier with the Goo Goo Dolls heroin video, where you go high and where it lifts you up and then drops you down, is that in City of Angels version of it, with this song being involved, love was what made him fall, which is his addiction. And when he falls, if you take the heroin as the same state of this, that fall is how he lost his wings. Some say that the idea of heroin, when you fall, is the same as clipping an angel's wings. There's actually very few that say that, but I have met people who said it, which I found interesting. Okay, number 12 on my list, Afro Man, Because I Got High. He actually wrote this as a joke for his friends, which you can actually tell by the way the music's done. This one wasn't meant to be serious. And it's about his experiences with marijuana. And for those of you who are Jay and Silent Bob fans, or Kevin Smith fans, you know that this was used in the closing credits of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And My mom hates songs that were about drugs, and she hated rap, and there was a lot of stuff that she was against. When I was younger, when this stuff was actually when this stuff was actually popular, I was in about middle school, just getting ready to go into high school. Yeah, these things were not high on her list. But Afro Man, because I got high, she thought that song was funny because it showed the dangers of what happens when you got high and you didn't do anything. But at the same time, it was just humorous in the way it was done. Now, Colt 45, she wasn't as big a fan of, which is understandable. But speaking of adults, when it came to adults, teens, and children, they all enjoy this song. And the thing about it is, a lot of adults will let little kids listen to this song because they don't understand what it's about, but because it actually is a good song for kids, that it keeps them busy or it actually calms them down. For some reason, the song actually works. It's a good song, but there's nothing to actually cause problems with it. But again, I am not telling anybody to let their kid listen to this. If you're going to let your kid listen to it, that's your choice. And you shouldn't blame anybody else for it. Now, number 13 on my list, Colorado by Florida Georgia Line. This one I had never heard of until I found it on the list of songs. And then I went, looked it up, and listened to it. It's actually kind of funny. The song is about a guy getting over a breakup. And like a band with a southern, and this band who has a southern name, like any southern people, they go about it the good way, apparently. Getting drunk and maybe by drowning their sorrows. And apparently this one took it to a little bit more of an extent and got some controlled substances while they were out in Colorado. And it talks about the whiskey or alcohol use and marijuana being involved. Drunk up in the Smokies on a Rocky Mountain high is actually the lyrics that are used. The Smokies is a reference to Tennessee, as the mountains in that area, meaning that particular part of the Appalachians, are known as the Smoky Mountains. And the Rocky Mountain High, you're in Colorado, the Rocky Mountains, and you're smoking. So you're high. Bandmate Tyler Hubbard commented, in a kind of roundabout way, it's a kind of love story. To who? You decide. And like I said, this actually made me, after reading about it, actually made me want to listen to it, and I actually enjoyed it. Okay, now for another song. Number 14 on the list. Another one I didn't know. One I didn't know was about drugs. A song by Candlebox known as Far Behind. It's written about Andrew Wood, the lead singer of a band called Mother Love Bone. Died of a heroin overdose in 1990. The death also inspired the songs Wound by Alice in Chains. The vocalist of Candlebox actually met Wood while working in a shoe store. The person asked him what his career would be if he could do anything other than work in a shoe store. He said sing. When the person that was with them, with Wood, asked him. And like I said, and this was written about, and Far Behind, it's a really beautiful song. And I highly recommend it. Number 15, this one's a short one, but a hilarious one. Weed with Willie by Toby Keith. The song is actually inspired by a meeting Toby Keith and Willie Nelson had while working on Beer for My Horses. Well, Toby Keith actually admitted he has never stepped onto Willie's bus without hearing the words, "I'll never smoke weed with Willie again." Not just in the song. He actually admitted this in an interview. But it turns out that more recently, when he started hearing this, it was about referring to how Willie had started cutting back on his marijuana smoking. And when they were asked when Willie was asked if he was going to quit smoking, he said, "No, it's just getting harder to find the good stuff." But again, this song, it's a live one. I'll warn you now, as far as I know, there is no audio, regular audio version of it. It only comes in a live track. And like I said, the song itself is hilarious. It's like listening to Afro Man's. It's like the country version of Afro Man to me. When it means Afro Man's Because I Got High. This is like the country version of that. Now for song 16 on the list, we go back to Candlebox. Because it turns out the two songs I really enjoyed by them were both written about drug use or drug addiction. And this one is called, the name of number 16 on my list by Candle. The song is called You. And like I said, it's by Candlebox. One word for the band's name, by the way. This one was about the frontman Kevin Martin and his problem with drug use. For a long time, he was having issues where he had gotten addicted to a drug, and he was really bad about using, to the point that he was stealing from his family, friends, hurting people just to get the drug, just to get that high. Well, on his 18th birthday, this was admitted by him. He went to a Midnight Oil concert. Good band, by the way, who was underrated. While they were listening to him play, he was floored by them. He woke up the next morning, said that's it. He quit. He never did that drug again. And he also paid back his parents and everybody else he owed money to that he had been stealing from. And as for drugs being used, he said that marijuana and mushrooms were the only exceptions because those were organic, not like heroin and other drugs like that. But because marijuana and mushrooms were organic, they were fine. Also, in 1996 film Foxfire, it's featured in it and it appears on the soundtrack album. Samuel Bayer, the director for the video, which this is another one where the video was a little bland, but it wasn't bad. Samuel Bayer was the same guy who directed Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana and Blind Melon's No Rain. So that's why I say the video was a little bland, because Smells Like Teen Spirit was done really well for something that looks simple, and No Rain, that one looks like it could have lost a little bit and been better for it. Okay, now number 17 on the list, and one of my personal favorites for drug songs. And this is another one where when you first listen to it, you might be in the minority on this one. I was actually in the minority who actually did know that this song was about drug use from the beginning when I first heard it. It's by the Hooters in the 80s. Later, a German band called Down Low did a different version of it, and it's called, the name of the song is Johnny B. It's also about heroin usage. Man, there's a lot of those, it turns out. And opening lines to the song are "Sleepless night, calling your name." It's the which, as most would know, it's the side effects of heroin withdrawal. You're chasing a dream. I mean, I ain't reading it line for line. I'm reading lines I saw in it and showing you how the references are there. Chasing a dream, when it's talking about how he's chasing her. Johnny, my friend, you're chasing a dream. It's talking about what's known as chasing the dragon, which was another reference to heroin use. Because they wanted to chase that high, but they could never catch it. Same as when you watch South Park. They had an episode where they had a video game called Chasing the Dragon. And the idea was to chase the dragon. And in the game, it had a needle that you were trying to get the dragon with. The dragon was always out of range. And the chorus actually explained the danger of it. Talks about how much there is to see if you just opened your eyes. Life was passing by. Most when using that use the needle are known for closing their eyes. And the dream state also allows them to sleep, which means they're missing what's going on around them. The chorus has the line, straight ahead, green light turns to red. Talking about the path, if Johnny, the character of Johnny, keeps on it as he's going at the moment, to me, while it, like I say, talks about the path, it also talks about those hospital heart monitors where as it beat, while you had a heartbeat, it stayed green. But the moment you flatlined, it went red. And it talks about making a person weak and wanting the woman over and over. The chills they want for another dose. And eventually they're going to want more. And it even uses the line. It even uses the phrase, she's got you strung out again, in the second verse. And it talks about how she controls him and Johnny's trapped and helpless to this woman. Okay, the video to this actually shows a guy in a den. When and you look around him, he's got like those old school hospital like separators that were on wheels, and it's got him lying in a bed, and you can see he's supposed to be sweating and suffering, but at the same time he's also dreaming of the woman who's wearing white, and the woman represents the drug, showing how much control she has over him, while the man is barely able to move. He actually tries to stand up and walk at one point, and he's limping. As he tries to make his way around the area, he eventually comes upon the woman, and she's got a little boy with her that's in a nice suit. And it's actually been argued as to what this boy represents in this. There's actually 3 theories as to this. One is that the boy is actually his son, who's going to become an eventual drug addict as well. The second is that it's the fear of the addiction that he's going to pass on to his son, which I can see, but I disagree with. I agree with the third term, that it's actually her getting full control over him finally, rather than having that little moment, because the child is trusting and comes to her willingly and looks at him like a complete stranger in this way. So it's like he's lost who he was, and she's gotten everything. Now in the video, when it hits that point, it does a secondary kick to it where it shows medics arriving, and suddenly you see him laying on the ground, and when he looks to see himself lying there, it shows him trying to lift him up, and then it switches back, because it switches back to the chorus in this moment, where it shows her in a white bikini, him in normal clothes, and talking about how she'll be waiting for him to return, warns of her kisses being poisoned, and during this time, the guy is destroying the room. It shows the guy in the room again, and he is destroying it completely. Like there was nothing else he had to do. Now, when he returns back to the medic scene in this, it shows the meds trying to revive him. She is actually, the woman is actually seen lying on one of the beds, looking down on him. And the best way to look at it is he's actually dead from the kiss. The kiss, so to speak. Then she finally got to him. And that's where the song ends, because it also shows the medics walking away at this point. Okay, now I'm going to leave you some final notes. With drug use, yes, it is a disease, and it is very hard to fight against, and we can want a person to quit that the same as we want them to quit alcohol, but we can't force them to. For that to happen, they have to make the choice willingly. Because if you try to force somebody to quit drinking or quit smoking or quit doing drugs, they're either going to hate you and find a way to get it. They're going to just continue doing it and not caring what you think. Or they'll find a way to do it around your back and make it look like they quit. But or they'll leave you and then continue doing it. But you can't make them. But again, this has got to be a personal choice. You can support them. I mean, the best you can do is support them and help them as they go through this. And also, it's been proven through statistics and things that people who actually quit, who actually choose to go sober on their own, are more likely to stay sober. Given a number of them are also proven to pick up new habits, such as those that quit smoking were shown to pick up a heavy eating habit shortly after, just because it's a different addiction. But often they trade in one addiction for another. But the majority of those who quit the addiction end up quitting the addiction and being able to stay off of it after that, and don't pick up another one. And if you got people who want to seek help, or you want to seek help yourself, rehab centers, medical areas that are similar to rehab centers that have like withdrawal help and can give you location to somewhere that can. And then there are some who are actually able to quit on their own, which to them, I really congratulate you, because that takes a lot of skill. Johnny Cash was one of those who could have told you how hard that was, as the movie proved, because he actually went through withdrawal with alcohol there for a long time. Where he had to deal with the issues that came along with it. Now, what was a song you actually enjoy Tell you what, now let's hear from you. What's a song you enjoy that's about drug use or drug addiction, or one you didn't know was about? And what did you think of my show? Also, leave a note for an upcoming video. If I use your idea, I will give you the proper things. I will give you the proper gratitude that you were the one who inspired, that you were the one who listed it. Until the next time,